Welcome to Business That Speaks. I'm Kelsie Downs, and this is a podcast about why your business matters and how challenges shape you. Let's get into our conversation now. Welcome back to Business That Speaks. Today I have Murry Parrish here with the Parrish DeVaughn law firm, and he has actually been a client of mine for a couple of years now, and he came to mind as I was building out the framework for this podcast, and so I wanted to start interviewing him. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. This is fun.
Yeah. So starting out, let's kind of hear about how you became an entrepreneur, and has that always been in Oklahoma? What does that look like for you?
Well, really, that's kind of a trick question, a tough question. How far back do you want me to go?
I guess the calling to law even would be.
So there's a history. So I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. And so start with my grandfather, and I'll make this short, but my grandfather coming back from World War II, he was a big gambler and wanted money playing cards on the ship coming back from the war. And when he got back, him and his buddy on the ship started a car dealership in Altus, Oklahoma, called Roberts Parrish Dodge. And so he did that for a while and then ended up selling it, and then started I call it a slumlord bar business. They had these bars in Altus, and then they would sell beer, and then they put jukeboxes in them and pool tables.
Okay.
And then do that. And then my dad kind of inherited that business, and then that eventually kind of morphed into video games because coin operated business.
Right.
And then my dad, had this video game business, which was really cool when I was a kid.
I bet.
It was very popular. It was my one really saving grace was the video games my dad
With all the
had.
kids at school.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody liked me. They had to. Birthday parties were fun. And then from there, my dad had a business. I always watched him run a business. My dad was the first one in the family to go to college. And then he, obviously wanted his kids to go to college. And so went to college, and, as growing up, I watched him, run his business. And I always knew that I wanted to run my own business. And, what that meant at the time, particularly I was in high school, early college days, I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I just knew that was the direction I thought I was going to go.
Yeah. Was it the flexibility you got to see in your dad's schedule? Was it he didn't have a limit on how much money he made? Like, what were the things that made you?
Yeah, I think maybe, and it also might have been almost like subconscious, but
right.
Yes, the freedom to do what you want to do. As an entrepreneur, as you know, it sounds great, but you're probably working a lot more than you ever thought you would.
Yeah.
But you create your luck, you create your opportunities, right. And so you're really only limited by yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So, that was always attracted me. And on my other side of the family, we had some lawyers in the family, and that was always something that interested me. And as I was in high school and got to college, I decided I thought law was the way to go, because I knew from talking to other attorneys that you have an opportunity as an attorney to start your own business, and quite a few do. And what that means exactly is different for every attorney. But so I knew that there was a path for me there. And so went to college. By the time I was after my freshman, maybe sophomore year, I knew I was going to go to law school.
Yeah.
So at that point, I basically, for all you aspiring young lawyers out there, I took what I call the path of least resistance to law school. So I took the crappiest major Oklahoma State offered.
That's what I was about to ask. What did you change your major to once you decided you were doing law school?
I hope I don't insult anybody. I say crappiest. It was the easiest, I thought. And so I majored in political science, which I liked it. I enjoyed the content. I don't mind writing. And so that was a major I could do and get through college without a whole lot of effort, or not a ton.
Well, keep your GPA up so you can get into law school.
That's what I mean, is keep the GPA up. I'm not like those poor engineering guys out there that are killing themselves. And so, so that, that worked, and then ended up going to law school. Then when I got out of law school, I thought I wanted to be a litigator, which is what a lot of young lawyers think that they want to do because it sounds exciting. And, but in those days, the law market back in the 1900s.
I was about to ask what year this was.
I'm not going to say exactly, but it was the 1900s. And it was, the law market was tough. And so you really didn't get to pick what you wanted to do when you got out of law school. You kind of just, you did wherever you got a job.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I landed doing insurance defense work, which basically means I was representing people who cause car accidents. And then they get sued by people like what we do now.
Right.
And so I kind of, cut my teeth there, bounced around to a couple of jobs, And, kind of occurred to me that I'm a horrible employee and I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I decided, now's the time,
Step out on your
step
own.
out on my own. I didn't have any kids. I wasn't married.
Expenses are low.
Expenses are low. Didn't have
That's
a whole
right.
lot to lose.
Yep.
Cause I remember I told my dad, I was like, you know what, Dad, I'm quitting my job. I'm just going to start my own law firm. And he's like, you're crazy. And he's like, do you even have a plan? I was like, yes, I'm going to start my own law firm. And I had $10,000 in my pocket. I'm like, I'm rich. I'm fine.
Exactly.
No problem. And
You're like, I don't need that much to live.
yeah. And he said, what are you gonna do if it doesn't work? And I was like, I'll just get a job. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, so I did that. And that was in 2001.
Okay.
So I dated myself right there. So you can do the reverse math, all you engineers out there. And so I just was a sole practitioner in 2001 and did that.
No
Really,
employees?
no
Or-
employees.
Okay.
No
Just you?
employees, just me. And I eventually had one employee. I don't remember where that was on that timeline, maybe 5 or 6 years in.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool. And so it gave me an opportunity to really understand how the business works. As I did everything.
Yeah.
I was the pardon me. I was the accountant. I was the recruit. I wasn't a recruiter, but I
Yeah.
was marketing. I mean, I was the lawyer. I was the secretary, and so learned how everything worked. I knew,
Yeah.
what you could do, what you couldn't do, and then so I did that, and had quite a bit of success, and ended up in that during that time frame, got married and had a couple kids, and
Mm-hmm.
things were going really well, and then fast forward to about 2012. Some of the laws in the state changed. They call it tort reform. And I had some concerns that was going to impact me as one of these little law firms because all of my business in those days came from just word of mouth.
Yeah.
I wasn't advertising at all.
And were you still on that other side of you're helping defend
Oh no,
insurance companies,
I
or had
totally
you switched
glossed
over?
over that. And so
Switched over to
yeah, so when I opened my practice in 2001, I was going to do anything. I didn't care.
okay, so you're just getting
Do
work.
it. Yeah, and so I ended up renting office space from a guy.
Yeah.
And he had basically a criminal practice, but there would be some car wreck cases that would kind of come in just through his word of mouth.
Gotcha.
And so I made a deal with him that, I would take all his car wreck cases, pay
You
him a
could give
percentage
him-
of that. And it ended up being where that's what I was doing. And that's what I knew how to do. So,
yeah.
so I just kind of basically naturally drifted into that area. Turned out I felt like I had an aptitude for it.
Mhm.
And then, one of my insurance defense days, I had a lot of friends my age that were working for other law firms that did that kind of work. And, they would send me cases because back in those days, a lot of those law firms didn't want to handle, they call them plaintiffs cases, because their clients, Allstate, Farmers, State Farm, didn't like for them to have those kind of cases. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of a political bad luck.
Yeah, you're kind of playing both sides of
Yes.
the
And so
coin.
now I don't think
Yeah.
you see it as much. But
Yeah.
anyway, so those guys would send me cases. And so that's kind of how I got started, and then just developed my own referral sources. And
Yeah.
things were going along swimmingly. And then, like I said, the laws changed in about 2010, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe 2011. And so I had some concerns that some of these larger firms were going to start, kind of taking my little tiny bit of market share I had away. So I knew I needed to do something different. And about
Yeah.
that time, my friend Pepper DeVaughn reached out to me. He was living in Enid at the time, and he was doing kind of similar stuff. He was working for a firm, but he was kind of in a place in his life. He was maybe wanting to do something different. And he wanted to know if, what I thought about getting on TV and being a TV lawyer. I'm like, I don't know. It sounds all right. But, that was before what we have now. I mean, it was 2001. It was
Yeah.
it was happening, but it wasn't happening like it's happening now.
Yeah.
And back then it was kind of frowned upon a little bit by the lawyers. I don't advertise. That's not
Yeah.
what I do. But I'm like, heck yeah. I remember.
Yeah, you were very much ahead of the curve.
Yeah. But I was ready. I mean,
Yeah.
I was ready for a change, and I didn't care.
Yeah.
I was like, you guys are crazy. If you don't want to make money, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
And so, then I'm like, yeah, let's do it. What could possibly go wrong? And so in 2012, I think it was 2012, our first, we hire an agency to do our advertising, and we go up and shoot these commercials. And then in 2012, our first commercials start airing. And
And at this point, like, the conversation between you and Pepper was, we are going to be putting every bit of money into marketing because we need to, like, volume.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So
Like the
first-
business plan was
a business plan was on the back of a cocktail napkin.
okay.
We didn't really have a business plan.
It's very professional.
So yeah. As I continue this, you'll see how actually brilliant I am. Not. And so we're like, yeah. So I'm like, and so in my mind, I'm like, okay, we'll do these TV commercials and we'll get some cases, and then this is gonna be great.
Yeah.
And And so we got all our money, all we had, and just put it in this pile. And like, we figured we had enough money to buy TV ads for 6 months. We could afford to do that. And then, by that point, I'm sure it'll be, it will just take off and it's going to be great. And, but yeah, it kind of worked. And so we start running the ads and then we start getting some momentum. The phone starts ringing, which is what it's supposed to happen.
Hmm.
Well, in our pile of money, we failed to account for growth. And so in those days, it was just me and Pepper and then 2 legal assistants. So there were a total of 4 of us. Well, my 6-month
And
reserve.
you're probably spending more than any other law firm in Oklahoma City on TV at this point.
So what we were told is we needed to be a top 3 buyer.
Yes.
And so we came in at solid 3, but
Okay.
and so
But still 3.
still 3. Whatever the minimum we could spend and be 3, that's what we wanted to do.
Okay.
And so that's what we were doing, but my projections were completely wrong.
Oh,
I didn't have a big enough cocktail napkin because I gave me 6 months, but really I had about 3. And so, and I did have some cases when we started this. So, I mean,
that you needed to
we had
finish out,
revenue that
and
was
yeah,
happening.
yeah.
And then the phone starts ringing and then all of a sudden, like, we're starting to hire some people. And then it occurs to me, it's kind of like the story of you put a frog in a pot and it's cold water and you turn up the heat on it and the frog doesn't notice until it's too late to jump out.
Yep.
I was right at the point where the water was about to start boiling and the kind of light bulb came on in my head. I'm like, I better figure something out here because we're about to have more work than we know what to do with. And we don't have enough money.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so,
And our reputation's about to tank if we can't
we're
handle
just going to, we're just
blow,
gonna
blow up the business.
it'll
Yeah.
just be, oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
It was interesting. What happened to those guys? I don't know. And so, then it was just like we were month to month for probably 6 to 8 months. I remember there were days I would drive to the post office, meet the mailman because I knew he had a check. I'd go get the check, deposit it in the bank.
Yeah.
We'd live to fight another day.
Yeah. And with personal injury and all of this, like sometimes those cases on average are taking 18 months. So you're not getting a payout, right?
Yeah. That's one of the hard things about the person.
Yeah. How do you
starting a
even
personal
cash
injury
flow
practice.
protect?
Because you don't get paid till you're done.
Yeah.
You don't. There's no advances. There's no nothing. You get paid when you're done, and you have to win. So you have
Exactly.
those 2 things. But we felt confident enough that we knew we could bring our cases to the finish line, but we still had to generate that revenue. And so, we was able to manage that. We got through it. And then after probably about 12 to 16 months, and then it really took off. And then we're hiring just people like crazy. Brilliant me. Remember how smart I was in college? I had the political science degree. Let me tell you how handy that came in about that point. It
You're
didn't.
like, I need to know how to run a business.
I have no idea.
Develop a team, processes,
Yes.
procedures,
Yes.
systems. Like what?
Bookkeeping? Seriously?
Yeah.
You know how I did my accounting in those days? I'd get on my little online account at Bank First and see how much money I had in my checking account. And then I learned later that's not how you do that because there's also checks that are out there and that number isn't real. It's so
No.
and then we're figuring that out.
Yeah.
And then you have it. So I understood the law side of it, and then having to really manage your way through. The second part of this is, how do you run this business?
That's right.
And then I was really fortunate that I knew some other lawyers, in other states, and they were really, really helpful and open and would let me come look at their operations. And then there's a lot of conferences out there. I think I've talked to you about that you can go to. And there's a lot of attorneys out there that are really willing to pull back the curtain, let you see how they do things. And so I really learned a lot. And I think probably one of the smartest things I did was recognize and acknowledge, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
And, I think being able to admit that is really helpful. And then identifying the things I don't know and then go figure out how to do them or get the person that can do it for you there in-house, and then from there, we that's where we are now. Then we just made a commitment. We increased our spending every year by 10 to 15%, and then one day we wake up and we've got one of the biggest personal injury law firms in Oklahoma, and pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. So what was the first leadership position that you hired?
That's another thing that's funny. So I'd go to these conferences and everyone's giving out all these titles.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so I
You
wanted
got
to
to
have
have officers. You got
yes.
to,
And so my first position, I think, was she was one of our first hires, but at that time, I think we were a whopping 8 people total.
Mm-hmm.
And I made her my COO. And so it's basically a very glorified office manager / bookkeeper.
Yeah.
And so her name was Venus, and did a great job. And she worked with me. She was my number 2 for years and years. And the two of us kind of figured out, how to navigate our way through this. But a really funny story about her is her background was like criminal science or something. Again, about as helpful as political science. But she's very smart and very good problem solver.
Yeah.
And so we were able to do things, but she was in charge of the bookkeeping. And I get a call one day, or a letter from the Oklahoma Bar Association, saying that my trust account was overdrawn. And in the world of lawyers, that is absolutely the worst possible thing that can happen, because you're not allowed ever, no matter what, to touch the money in the trust account. That's not your money. And so, like, we settle a case, for example, with
Yeah.
State Farm, and we settle the case for $10,000. $10,000 goes into that account. And then through accounting, we will pay the client what they're owed.
Yes.
And then we'll write a check. They'll pay the doctors what they're owed. And then whatever our attorney fee is, we'll take that out. So that's the only time you could take money out of that account. And it's overdrawn by like $150,000, which to me in those days was like 10 million. I'm like, what
Right.
happened?
Right.
And so I'm like, Venus, where's that money? And she's like, oh, it's right here. It's in my top drawer. And I was like, what do you mean it's in your top drawer? She goes, well, I put it in Quicken. And she had entered the deposits in Quicken, not QuickBooks, but Quicken, which is like the original at-home. You may even be young, I don't know what
I
Quicken
don't
is.
even know what it is.
It was this thing to help you balance your checkbook. So she would enter the deposit on Quicken and put the check in the drawer and didn't take it to the bank.
Oh no.
And so we had the money, but it just was sitting in the drawer of her desk. And so she's looking at the accounting like, we're good. Everything's square. So call the bar.
Quicken's fine.
Yeah, it says right here, bar.
All the cash is
Oklahoma
sitting
Bar
in the drawer.
Association. I've got it. Look. So anyway, so I call them and tell them what happened. And fortunately, the person I talked to
It's
was
gracious.
sympathetic and laughed and like, will you please go put that money in the bank? And then, yes, I will.
Yeah,
And so
right now on my way,
yes,
actually.
I've already done it.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
that happened, and we learned from that. And,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, that was one of the first, probably one of the bigger lessons that I learned.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. So first leadership position was more of a operations role, but did you kind of build out like at what point did you realize you need like an org chart and you need teams, and then kind of talk about how you even developed that? Was that
So-
more of what you learned from other attorneys?
It is.
That's what I thought,
And so, I had been a sole practitioner for years. And so I had this mentality of like, no jobs too big or too small for anyone. We're all pulling the same rope. We're all going to work together. And then I quickly learned that doesn't really work either. Once we started hiring more additional attorneys, then we need legal assistants, and then we need people to get medical records. We need people that are just and then, answering the phones.
Yeah,
Think about
intake.
that, right?
Yeah.
Because back in the old days, you had a receptionist.
Yeah.
Well, now, we're signing up several cases a day, which back in the old days, if we got a case a week, we were pretty happy. And so now it's several a day. And, it takes more than one person to answer the phone. And so we got to have an intake department. And then you need a settlement department that gets the checks back out the door, pays the clients. And so, and I looked at law firms, kind of saw how they did it, modeled some of the things after what they did. And then the other thing I think that was I thought was super important beyond your org structure was your firm culture. And worked really, really hard on culture. And I think that's often overlooked. Maybe it's not, but I feel like that it is. And it's one of the harder things to maintain, because it can turn so quickly. And so spend a lot of time and effort trying to make sure we had the right people in the right places. I think transparency is super important. Make sure everyone knows what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Well, it's the same mantra that you just said of I don't know what I don't know. And so you have to, if you never say I don't know what I don't know, you come at it with pride versus humility.
Correct.
And then you're training up an entire team of people that never ask questions, but they also don't know what they're doing. And then they can't get their work done, or they're not doing it well.
They're not doing it well.
Yeah. And then no one's happy.
Yeah. And I've always encouraged everyone on my team to challenge me. If you think I'm wrong, I may not agree with you, but if you think I'm wrong, let me know.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to know. Because my dad describes me. He's like, son, you're often wrong, but never in doubt. And, and so, and I do have a little bit of that mentality. And so, but I do want to hear, and I don't mind admitting when I'm wrong. And so I always thought that was super important.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting, and not something I feel like I've heard. Do you think that the culture and you spending the time and money to invest in that has led to you being able to scale it to being the biggest law firm in Oklahoma?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
it's so important. And one of the things, scaling is such a fascinating thing.
Mhm.
Again, not taught in political science school, but but I've read a ton of books, and it's a thing. And what one of the things I've learned, particularly, just from what I've learned and the people I've talked to, the law firms I've visited, is, every time you double, you're going to break.
Yep.
Your org breaks, and so you just have to be prepared for that. And then you've got to accept it, and you just got to be prepared to muscle through it. And you may lose people. Not everyone's going to agree with the changes you have to make, but you have to continue. You're always adapting. You you never get there.
No, you
You
don't.
never get there.
Yeah.
One of the ways I like to describe it is like to say, like, there's this door over here, like you've always wanted to have the key to that door, and but no one will give it to you. But so you work really hard and you do all these things and you spend all this time and you get better, and they're like, all right, I'm going to give you the key to that door. So you go open that door and you think, once I open that door, I'm done. I've gotten there. You
Yeah.
open the door and there's 20 more doors,
Yeah.
and so it's just there's no top. I don't think there's
Yeah.
not a top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And as soon as you kind of have that mentality or that mindset, that there's always more. And I don't mean that in a greedy way. I just mean you can always improve. You can always get better. There's no end, and it's interesting, and it's fulfilling, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's like something I've been talking to my team about even just in the last couple of weeks. It actually gives you like a freedom and a capacity in your brain space to like be able to keep doing the work. I think when you give up to the idea that perfectionism exists or that you're ever going to reach the end, because it's like, one person just could not get over the fact that like they didn't meet this deadline and blah blah blah, and I was like, you got to let it go. People are going to miss deadlines. Like, and if it's not this, then it's going to be something else. Like, and are you going to allow it to just like send you into this emotional spiral every time? Because otherwise you're not gonna be able to keep moving forward. You're going to burn yourself out, or you're not going to like do good work. And so I almost think that the understanding of like, we're always in process gives you the freedom to do good work.
Exactly. So I mean, like, how rewarding would your job be? Like, oh, this is it. It's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Like, well, at that time, I guess it's time to look for another job.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I mean, then there's no satisfaction,
Yeah. No fulfillment that
no
comes
fulfillment.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very true. So as you've grown a team, what have been some of the challenges, and where has that butt up against like your character, or where you're like, oh man, I really effed that up, or
God, if you only knew how many different times I make the cocktail napkin, reference a lot, because I'll come up with ideas. I'm like, this is going to be perfect, and I'm like, all right, we're going to implement. Particularly, the team always hated it when I went to a conference and came back, because I'd have all these ideas. Here's what we're going to do, and then I don't realize it doesn't necessarily work. But just trying to think like where I would run into the most trouble is, or have the most pushback, is like when I was really trying to make really kind of foundational change. And like one of the most recent ones was, one of the things we look at a lot of data and a lot of data points. And one of them was our average fee. How much are we earning on each case? And one would think that that's kind of a static number. If it's this kind of case, someone's in a car wreck and they sprain their ankle, it's probably worth X, whatever. And then generally across the board it is. But as I learned, that's really not the case. And so I challenged my team. I was like, I want to increase our average fee from, let's say, 5,000 to 8,000. Well, they're like, that's impossible. I was like, no, it's not. And here's what we're going to do it. We're going to work harder on the front end. We're going to identify, we're going to make sure our clients get the best medical care possible.
That's right.
We're going to invest the time, and really the secret, it's a 4-letter word, and it's WORK, work. And it's just hard. And people, entities, insurance companies, they just don't give you money. You have to earn it. You got to go take it from them. And the only way you're going to be able to do that, you got to convince them that if they're not willing to do that now, that you're going to get it from them in court.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you can do that is you got to prove to them you know what you're doing, and you got to do it well.
Which means you have to work hard.
You have to work hard.
That's
and
right.
that was and so I had to really get to kind of flip the script, because in the old days we would get a case and then we're like, all right, are you going to see your doctor? Yes. Okay. When you get done seeing your doctor, give me a call. Then we'll get all your medical records together and we prepare what's the settlement demand. We'll send to the insurance company. They're going to give us some money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the way, if you want to, you really put your client first and take care of your client, you want to make sure, one, that you're identifying every injury that they sustained in this accident. For example, if you break your arm in a car wreck, bones are hard to break. And so if you're in something that is that violent that it fractures a bone, that's probably not the only body part that's hurt.
That's right.
More likely than not, another body part's hurt. However, that's the acute injury, and that's what's getting all the attention. And so we want to get that arm fixed, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we also want to make sure that your shoulder or your hand, the other things attached to this arm, or your neck or your back, that also likely were injured in that. Also, you get the treatment you need there, because the name of the game is you want them to get well and go back to their normal life. Yes.
Yeah.
And so identifying those things and making sure we get them looked at, make sure we help them find physicians that can treat those injuries. Whereas before they might've gotten missed, or the arm heals and it's been 3 months and like, hey, Murray, my back's hurting. And I was like, well, was it always hurt? Well, yeah, but my arm was hurting more. Then I tell them, Allstate Insurance or whoever, insurance company, well, their back hurts too. And they're like, well, if their back hurts, why weren't they going to the doctor for their back?
Yeah.
And so we'll pay you for the broken arm. We're not paying you for that back.
Yeah. Yeah. Being more comprehensive on the front end allows, which takes more time. It takes more work.
Yes.
But.
And you got to listen, and you
have to be very curious.
Yeah. You have to be very curious.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to have partners that are also very curious. So the doctors that you're sending people to, you need to make sure that they're being as curious as possible, because the last thing you want is, okay, I went back to normal life, but then a year later, 6 months later, normal life no longer existed again because my back started hurting, or
and we didn't address it there.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure,
it's already been closed, or
and it's over, because once you sign a piece of paper, it's done.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah. So how did they handle that conversation? I'm sure it's happened over the course of
I got
months.
a lot of eye rolls, and like whatever. There's another one of Murray's crazy ideas.
Came back from conference.
Yeah, basically. And I always like to say I pulled them across the finish line by their hair.
Yeah.
But as we started doing it, and then they start understanding. And then once you get the buy-in, and that again goes back to this culture thing, and it's a trust thing. If they trust that, one, I believe this, and two, trust that probably Murray's not going to suggest we do something that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because we're all want the same thing at the end of the day. And then once they start believing that, and you get a buy-in from a couple of your other strong attorneys or strong team members,
they can lead the culture.
And then it snowballs.
Yeah.
It snowballs. But you just got to make sure you take care of your team, and you got to make sure that they feel appreciated. And again, I referenced transparency. I can't emphasize how important that is, because you want them to believe, one, what you're telling them is true, and the way that they know it's true, so they can see it's true.
Yeah.
And so we have core values in my office, and, we've had the same ones, and we try to stick, we live by them. I mean, and like one of them is, the first one is client first. And so and that is preached across the entire firm. And I'm like, if you're making a decision, the first question you ask yourself every single time is this in the best interest of the client? Not you, the attorney, not Murray, the owner of the firm, not the law firm. Is it in the best interest of the client?
Yeah.
And particularly in our line of work, we don't get paid to the end. And it's real easy to say, well, hey, I could settle this case for X, and they're willing to pay it right now. And I can tell my client, look, you're going to get this much money in your pocket. But if if we file that lawsuit or we do these extra things, we can get you more. But it may take 6 more months. What's the right answer? Well, the right answer is you do what's best for your client.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it means that maybe we don't get paid for another 6 months, but it's still ultimately at the end of the day, that's what you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Wow, that's really cool. What is the biggest thing you've learned in running and scaling a law firm?
I really think, honestly, the biggest thing I've learned is I already kind of talked about it, and that's that you never get there. There isn't an end.
Did you resist that for a time?
Well, I think I just said
when you were younger.
I think you just as human nature, you're like you set these kind of these goals in your head.
Yeah.
Like once I get to this point, I'll have made it. Like once I'm able to go buy that top of the line pickup truck, I mean, what else could I want? And I can do that. And, then you get the truck and you're like, oh, well, okay, that's pretty cool, but is that really it?
Yeah.
And so I think just embracing that and, and trying to build on that, I think is really helpful. And that's really, I mean, I think about it all the time. And, when people ask me the same questions you ask me, it's like, well, what's next? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's exciting. It really is.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question. What's something you're excited for?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a place, the law firm is, where we have some flexibility and we can do some things. And we're really, right now, we just opened a new location in Tulsa, and we're going to really lean into that. And I do have an experience now of starting a law firm from scratch in Oklahoma City and learned a lot there. And so we're going to go in there and do that. And I'm excited to see what that means, because we have a relationship with the Thunder, which has
Yep.
been really great. And I think we can lean into that, leverage that, because people in Tulsa have already been introduced to us in a sense, because they
Yep.
know about the Thunder. And so I think that that'll be helpful for us, because they know us a little bit, hopefully trust us a little. And then so we're moving in that market. We opened the office this month. And so I'm really excited to see what happens there.
Yeah.
But it really kind of starting over, because you got all new people again. And then we've got to scale again, this major scaling thing. And so
Yep.
I'm
And similar market, but different.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's similar, but it's very different. Tulsa and
very
Oklahoma City
different.
are not the same towns.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really exciting. Well, is there any last things that you would want to say or
I don't know.
encourage the people with?
I I really, I mean, I think I would, if I was talking to a young lawyer, and I do, is I think it's be brave. Don't be afraid,
Yeah.
and kind of with me, there never really was a plan B. This is what we're doing, and it's got to work.
That's right.
And I think, if you decide that you want to go do it, but just commit to doing it.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to go your way. Things never go as planned.
No.
What they say, you plan, God laughs,
Yeah.
I mean, and they never do. And when they
Yeah.
don't, it's okay. Just fix it. Be able to pivot. And when you fail, that's okay. You're going to fail. You're going to fail probably more than you succeed.
Yeah.
You hear that all the time. My dad used to say it, like, whatever, but it's so true, right?
It is. Yeah. No, it absolutely is true. And I think people have in their mind that like, I'm going to try to do this for this amount of time to this amount of time. And you really can't do that. It's like you only fail when you stop.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, that didn't work. Moving on in this direction. And you just keep trying and trying and trying. I guess you reach a point where if maybe you're not making money and you need money,
Well,
then
then you got to figure, okay, well, now I know how not to do that. And
exactly.
so then
It's like,
what's
okay,
the
well,
next
how do
thing?
how do I make money? How do I live off of this? Or,
Oh, yeah, of course, you got to be smart about it. But
yeah.
but if you do, I mean, oftentimes, I mean, if it's going to work, and if you think it will, trust yourself, trust your gut.
And go
But
for it.
you got to put in the work. I mean, and that's really a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And your mindset is such a huge piece of being able to put in the work and know that what you're working towards is
Yeah,
going to be
your
worth
biggest
it.
enemy is yourself.
That's true.
It is, and like,
Yeah.
as soon as you can get to the point where you can look at the guy in the mirror every morning and agree that we're going to do this again today. I mean, that's half the battle right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for joining me today.
No, it was fun.
That was fun. Thank you guys for being here for the conversation I had with Murry. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to Business That Speaks. If there was anything that stood out in today's conversation, I would love to hear about it. Please get online and leave us a review. Follow me on Instagram, connect with me on LinkedIn, do all of the things, and we'll see you back here next time.